Rowena Adelia worked as a maid in the imperial palace. The girl served the prince. He wouldn't let anyone near him but her. Cardin Arno Winfrith was the only prince of the Winfrith Empire. Prince Arno's mother was the current Empress Ludovica Owen Winfrith. She was an overbearing woman, so she and her son were often at odds. Although Arno was the only prince of the empire, the Empress did not want to give him the title of heir to the throne. The noble Duke of Rutan has sworn allegiance. So checkmate. Your role is to hold your breath and adapt to this world, said the Empress, and patted her son on the shoulder. After that, she left the room. Rowena noticed that after talking to his mother, the prince's mood always soured. Usually the girl treated him to various sweets and sweet tea. It helped the prince to distract himself. I don't want tea. That's all for today. Go to your room. You'd better get out of here before the sun goes down. There have been disturbing rumors about the imperial garden lately, so tread carefully, said the prince to his maid. Rowena gingerly walked gingerly through the garden. It really did look extremely ominous today. It seems like the same road I've walked many times, but today the garden gives me chills. It's all because the prince mentioned rumors. Some people claim that there are monsters roaming the imperial court, mumbled Rowena. Her own voice soothed her. There is talk that if a monster captures a man, he will change so much. It's as if he will become completely different. But I don't think that's true. It's unlikely the guards would allow such a thing to happen. It's just a rumor, and no one's ever seen those monsters. In any case, I'm worried for nothing. However, I'd better get to my room as soon as possible. Rumors are rumors, but it's definitely very scary here. Suddenly, from the depths of the garden came a cry. The girl turned around, frightened. Rowena rushed to her aid. Suddenly, something resembling a large slime appeared in front of the girl. This something swallowed the man into itself. Rowena wanted to run away, but the monster grabbed her with its slippery tentacles. With fear, the girl froze in place. An amazing experience has been had. You have died. Received a bonus for the first experience. There are accumulated experience points for awakening unique abilities. Do you wish to use them? Asked the girl in a metallic male voice unknown to her. A card with the points appeared in front of Rowena. The girl reached out her hand to take her bonus. She didn't want to die. She used every opportunity to survive. Suddenly, a guy in a long, dark cloak appeared in front of the girl. He pulled her out of the monster's clammy tentacles. A mechanical voice announced the completion of the awakening. The unique ability Time Extender has been activated, the voice announced. Rowena opened her eyes. The girl decided that the events happening to her before were just a dream. The girl jumped up on the bed to see if there was any pain in her body. As luck would have it, she felt fine. She was even more convinced that she was having a nightmare. No, wait, that just can't be. I woke up in the room I lived in 3 years ago. How is that possible? Rowena thought in amazement. How did I end up here? Was I brought here by other workers? But why here exactly? By the way, my bag is on the table and my coat is hanging on the coat rack. Have my things been carried here too? By the way, there was a burn scar on my arm. Where is it now? I need to think it over. I woke up in my old room. The burn scar was gone. It's impossible that I traveled back 3 years, back in time. Is this really happening to me? This isn't a dream? Rowena, are you awake yet? A smiling Ciela entered the room. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? You're up later than usual today. Go wash your face first. There's hardly anyone in the bathroom yet, so run faster. Ciela Riven had been friends with Rowena since the very first day she arrived at the Imperial Palace. They had always been together. Ciela was like a sister to Rowena. But 3 years ago, the girl disappeared without a trace. No one knew if she was alive or dead. And how could that even be? How is it that Ciela is now in front of me alive and unharmed? The girl thought to herself. Rowena, why are you looking at me with such a sad look? Ciela asked. Ravenna ran to her friend Ciela and held her tightly against her. You seem unusual today. Did you have a nightmare? Ciela said with a ringing laugh. Holding her friend close to her, Rowena suddenly realized that this was not a dream, and she had actually gone back in time a few years. Suddenly, the golden rectangle on which she had seen the messages before appeared in front of Rowena's eyes again. The girl fearfully pushed her friend away from her. "Ciela, are you seeing that rectangle too? It's been following me for the last 24 hours. Rowena pointed her finger at the message screen that hovered in the air right in front of the girl. "I don't see anything. There's nothing there," Ciela replied. "Look, stop talking nonsense. You had a scary dream. That's why you're seeing strange things. If you keep stalling, the bathroom will be full of people. Quickly go wash up." Ciela pushed her friend out the door of their room. "Rowena, besides you, no one else can see the message screen. Also, other people can't understand what you've been told." A pleasant male voice was heard. "What are you anyway?" Rowena asked. The man that had earlier pulled her out of the monster's sticky tentacles appeared in front of the girl. He announced that he was the key person of this world. Roughly speaking, he was the curator. His name was Saturn. "Well, our acquaintance has been made. Now we can slowly explain to you the structure of this world," said Saturn, rubbing his hands together. "Your soul is linked to the ability to travel through time. At the moment, your power level is still quite low, so you can't move whenever you want and wherever you want. If you remember, you made a contract with me that day. I moved you at the most appropriate time. If you want to level up, you need experience points. You can get them in a variety of ways. At the moment, you have absolutely no experience points since they were spent to awaken. If you do your usual work, experience points will come slowly. If you want to level up quickly, you have to constantly do new things. Any new skill you have is extremely valuable to you. And the fact that you already have death experience is also a good thing. I'd like to point out, if you die all the time, your experience will quickly increase. However, I don't see any point in dying randomly. The fact that I went back in time is a good sign for me, am I right? Knowing my future ahead of time, will I now be able to avoid death?" Rowena asked. "You were only able to avoid a certain moment. That monster could appear at any moment. It is already slowly growing somewhere right now. I want to warn you that even if you leave the palace, you will die again in 3 years," replied Saturn. "But I want to live. I have absolutely no desire to die. Is there any way that will prevent the monster from growing? I am not prepared to wait for my doom. I cannot sit idly by. I must act," the girl exclaimed. "I haven't seen much of this world. I really want to meet my love and get married. I want ordinary human happiness." "Then start taking action. First, save your friend Ciela from death. She is a key figure in this world. This girl has great instincts. If she dies, the monster will begin to grow at a tremendous rate," Saturn warned. "But don't think it will be easy. You'll need a lot of strength and skill to save your friend. You may even find yourself thinking that you would have been better off choosing death. Still, if you fix what originally went wrong, you'll have a chance to be in the future you want. So, will you try to do it?" "I'll try," the girl exclaimed. "I want to remind you that in 3 days, Ciela will disappear," said Saturn. The girl remembered that the last time Ciela disappeared, the head maid had said that she had just quit her job. Rowena didn't believe it, since Ciela's room had her things left behind. "If I want to save my friend, I have to be by her side at all times during these 3 days," Rowena thought to herself. Rowena had been tailing her friend for 3 days. The last few hours remained before she disappeared. "Rowena, I've noticed that you're always looking at your watch today. Apparently you have some errands to run after work. And if I remember correctly, you've been working for me for over 10 years now," said Prince Arnaud to the girl. "Yes, you are right. You took me to work for you 10 years ago," replied Rowena. "I think this is the first time I've seen you like this. Apparently you're going to have an extremely important eye meeting after work that you've forgotten you're in front of me right now," noted the prince. "No, not at all. Of course it's important business, but it can wait." Rowena waved her hands fearfully. "That's how—" "Rowena, of course it would be good if you stayed with me longer. You're the only person who can be around me for a long time. If you have thoughts of marriage, put them aside for a while," asked the prince. "Marriage is out of the question now, for I don't even have a suitor," exclaimed the girl. "All right, if that's the case. Oh, by the way, have there been any new people recently that you've been bumping into unexpectedly?" asked the prince to the girl. Rowena answered him that there were new maids in the palace that she had not seen before. "Beware of them. I want to warn you that it can seep in anywhere. Where my gaze doesn't fall, I won't be able to protect you," the prince warned the girl. Rowena remembered that before she had traveled back in time, the prince had also told her to be extremely careful. Did he really know about something? "I apologize, but what do you mean by the word it?" the girl asked. "I mean the devourer, but you shouldn't know anything more about him. It could be dangerous," replied the prince. "Well, the long-awaited time for the end of the day has come. I can't disappoint you, so looking forward to it, so run your errands. I'll see you tomorrow." Lately, Rowena has been surrounded by bad energy, just so nothing bad doesn't happen to her. The prince thought to himself. "Saturn, I have one question. Why did you make a contract with me specifically? If your goal is to get rid of the monster, wouldn't someone else be suitable for the role?" Rowena asked. "No, my goal isn't to get rid of the monster. It's for you to survive," said Saturn, who appeared behind the girl. "Rowena, dodge!" suddenly shouted Saturn. A sticky, long tentacle pierced the girl's side. "I've always known that small nuisances must be gotten rid of in time, otherwise they can turn into big problems," said the girl in the maid's uniform. Rowena guessed that the devourer in human form was in front of her. "Rowena, well, since you don't want to die, we'll try with you again," said Saturn. Saturn reached out his hand to the girl and brought her back in time again. Rowena was back again 3 days before Ciela went missing. "One should be more careful now. I never imagined that that monster would appear in front of me so unexpectedly. Now I understand the meaning of could be anywhere," thought to herself Rowena. "The monster can take on any appearance. It can look like an ordinary human. I'm not at all grasping the line of how I should act. If I suggest to an unaware Ciela that she run away from the monster, I'm going to look strange. So how do I figure out who in Ciela's entourage is the real monster? Although I'm trying to put on a nonchalant appearance, I'm actually really scared. I'm even afraid to go outside my room. Now I will be afraid of absolutely all people because I can't be completely sure that there isn't a monster among them. But in order not to arouse suspicion, I must proceed with caution. This time I can't follow Ciela's footsteps as I might die in the same way as last time. I should act differently this time. I need to fight this monster. That's the only way I can get rid of it. Saturn, answer me. What do I need to do in order to defeat the monster?" asked the girl to her handler. "If you're going to fight the monster, I'll give you one piece of advice." Saturn appeared next to the girl. He materialized simply out of thin air. "If you go back in time this time too, your powers to view information will increase. These powers will help you unlock the secrets of this world. There are many things I want to tell you, but unfortunately it is impossible. Some things you must learn for yourself from your own experience. I am not a deity or anything like that. I'm just a curator of this world, a mediator preserving its structure. Even if a critical moment comes for the creatures of this world, but the world itself survives, I won't be able to interfere much with events. I'm sorry, that's all I can help you with at the moment." Saturn lowered his head mournfully. "Saturn, don't feel bad. You have helped me so much. I am grateful for any help you can give me. Besides, it's because of you that I'm still alive," the girl exclaimed. "Rowena, you can use your powers anyway. Remember, if you corner the monster's human form, then it will expose its essence as you saw earlier. At that point, you'll be able to destroy it with your abilities. That's all understandable, but there's one big problem. The thing is, I've never fought before and I've never dealt with weapons either," Rowena admitted. "After looking over your skills, I noticed that you have a pretty high level of spear skills. I would like to point out that since you signed a contract with me, it is possible to use analog weapons. Noted Saturn. Most likely your spear skill is so high because you work with a mop a lot. Wait, are you saying that I can fight monsters with an ordinary mop? Is that even realistic? The girl clarified. Sitting at her desk, the girl kept thinking about what Saturn had told her. Could a monster really be defeated with an ordinary mop? Did she really have a spear skill? And how would it manifest during the battle? Rowena, come to me and give me your hand, asked the prince from the girl. Rowena approached the prince and extended her hand to him. I realize my behavior is a bit tactless, but please be patient, said the prince and kissed the girl's hand. Suddenly, a strong, cool wind blew into the room. In an instant, all the girl's worries disappeared. It's a temporary effect, but now trouble won't be able to approach you so easily. The spell won't be able to keep you from something big or stand for long, but if it helps at least a little, it's already good, said the prince to the girl. Rowena, I know something is going on in your life, but you don't want to tell me about it. To be honest, I'm worried about my guesses. I won't make long speeches. Just remember that your being here is valuable to me. Mr. Carden, please allow me to leave work early today, the girl asked. She hadn't expected the prince to decide to help her, and as long as he was in good spirits, one should take advantage of it. Sure, if you need to go somewhere, you can go, replied the prince. The girl exclaimed happily. Rowena's first order of business was to go to the warehouse to get a mop. Rowena, isn't this the peak of business hours? What are you busy doing? Asked Ciela, who entered the warehouse. I had some free time freed up, so I decided to meet Lambert, replied the girl, tucking her mop behind her back. I just ran into Lambert in the hallway. Let me go get her, Ciela suggested. Rowena already knew that Encia Lambert was a monster in human form. Lambert, I came to you for advice, but it's a bit awkward to talk in here, so let's go outside and talk? Rowena wasn't sure how to handle the monster, but it was still worth a try. And how far away do we have to go? Don't you think we're getting far enough away from where people are congregating? Asked Lambert to the girl. Rowena comfortably grabbed the mop handle and placed it against the girl's neck. What kind of joke is this? Wondered Lambert. And I'm not joking at all. I'm aware of your true nature, and I even know what you're going to do. I'm going to rid Ciela of you, Rowena exclaimed. Huh, that all sounds so funny. And here I was wondering why you were following that man around. Laughing, said Lambert. The unexpected girl launched one of her tentacles at Rowena. Rowena was able to bat the tentacle away from her with a mop handle. Look, what do you think you're going to do to me? Do you really plan on tackling me with that stick? Know that only a world guide can handle the likes of me, Lambert exclaimed. Well, I'll probably have to destroy you. I can't let you live. Let's try to fight you. Lambert let loose several dozen slippery tentacles. The tentacles rushed toward Rowena. The girl began to fight them off. This is the first time I've ever swung a mop so vigorously. The strange body movements do not subject me to any discomfort. I didn't expect to be so excellent at using a mop, Rowena thought to herself. Waving the mop from side to side, Rowena began to slowly approach the monster. Suddenly, Lambert knocked the mop out of Rowena's hands. With one of the tentacles piercing the girl's shoulder, Lambert lifted her off the ground. Listen, you fight pretty good. I didn't expect you to be so quick. Thanks to that man's encouragement, I even had to put you through a bit of a struggle. But still, my abilities are far superior to yours, said Lambert to the girl. Lambert wrapped her tentacles around Rowena's neck and began to strangle her. Rowena was short of breath. Everything started to go dark in front of her eyes. The girl guessed that she had lost this time as well. Death had caught up with her. I need to analyze everything carefully and understand where I made a mistake. Maybe there really isn't enough strength. I need to change my battle tactics, Rowena thought to herself. Saturn appeared behind the girl, but he soon had to disappear as Prince Arno entered the room. Rowena, you are unusually early today, noted the prince. The girl did not hear the prince. She was absorbed in her own thoughts. What is she doing now? Is it hard work? She surprises me. We should at least change her atmosphere a little. The prince thought to himself. The prince wanted to cast a peace spell on the girl, but Saturn prevented him. Suddenly, the prince had a massive headache. The prince froze in place and clutched his head. Hearing someone's anguished moan behind him, Rowena turned around. "Rowena, speak plainly. How many times have you died and resurrected so far?" asked the prince, wrapping his arm tightly around the girl's shoulders. "You see, in my last memory, I cast a spell on you. It's not magic, but most likely my special feature." Arno realized he was being rather rude, so he let go of the girl's shoulders. "Controlling this ability is the privilege of the so-called king of the world. I can use it to view the world. Unfortunately, my ability isn't perfect, so I can only protect someone and give peace of mind. That time, I not only gave you peace of mind, but I also tried to save your life. The trace of the protection I imposed and my ability mixed together, which is why I realized something had happened to you. With all the failed attempts, you're still not going to give up even if you die again? I won't ask how you reversed time, since it's similar to my ability. As I've already realized, you can't defeat a monster. I'm going to die dozens of times to accumulate a pattern of actions that will help me fight monsters in the future," Rowena admitted. "Come on, I'll help you. I can't fight monsters myself, but I can give you some tips. I'll be waiting for you in the garden," said the prince, and walked out of the study. "Crazy!" exclaimed Rowena, grabbing her head. Saturn remarked that it was not a bad thing to have allies. Yes, but not Mr. Carden. I mean, he's a prince. What if something happens to him? Sure, he won't fight, but he's still putting himself in danger. The girl objected. Rowena again invited Lambert into the garden to talk. The girl noticed the prince hiding behind one of the trees in the garden. Rowena was glad that there was a great distance between him and the monster. "Rowena, if I remember correctly, you serve the prince. So why are you here then? Though no, I guessed it, you want to set up an exam," Lambert exclaimed. "I've been catching your gaze very often lately. Perhaps I will follow your master's will if you convince me. Show me your power. If my maid's mop wins, I will change my mind," said the prince to the monster in human form. "Great! That's just what I need." With a joyful voice, Lambert exclaimed and released her tentacles. Since Rowena had fought Lambert several times before, she understood her opponent's pattern of actions. This time, Lambert fought even more desperately than before. It seemed like there were simply countless tentacles flying at Rowena. Suddenly, the prince pushed Rowena away and ran at the monster. One of Lambert's tentacles injured the prince's arm. "Mr. Carden, you need medical attention immediately," exclaimed Rowena. "You don't have to worry about me compared to her. I'm perfectly fine," replied the prince to the girl. Turning her head toward Lambert, Rowena saw that the monster had been defeated. Saturn explained to the girl that the shadow had attacked the king of the world without getting permission. For this, she would be punished. Her power began to fade. "Now you can destroy it," said the prince to the girl. "You know, it was funny watching you worry about me after all," exclaimed the prince. He healed his hand right before the girl's eyes. "Our old glory, our great queen. Give me a chance." "Great Mistress Ludovica," whispered the exhausted Lambert. "Is the Empress really behind all this?" Astonished, Rowena thought. "You shouldn't think about all sorts of trivia. At the moment the monster is weakened, you can destroy it now," said Saturn to the girl. Rowena ran up to Lambert and hit her with the shovel blade. With a loud howl, Lambert grabbed her stomach. "I don't want to die! I don't want to disappear like this!" screamed Lambert. Lambert launched her tentacles at Rowena again. After fighting off all the tentacles, Rowena approached Lambert again and struck her again with the mop handle. In the same second, all the slime came out of the girl. She was finally cleansed. "That's quite a feat. You slaughtered a monster with a mop handle. Only you are capable of doing that," the prince said with a smirk. Rowena had already forgotten that she had an audience. "I believe that any weapon will do for eliminating monsters. So you are laughing in vain at my mop," replied the girl. "But the mere fact that you took down a monster with such a weapon makes me laugh. No matter how you put it, it's a pretty rare sight," said the prince. I did good after all. I was able to survive the day. I've already come back here several times over and over again. Now I finally have a chance to wake up tomorrow. Thought to herself, Rowena. You are only an empress on the outside. You don't really have any powers. You can't even use your power, snickered the prince. The annoyed empress swept all the items lying on the table off the table. She realized that Arno was right. What an impertinent man! How dare you trespass on mine? The empress hissed through her teeth. All right. All this time, I've only quietly observed what's going on, but now I'll take action. You will lose your most precious possession, and you will fight like a fish against ice to get it back. The empress thought to herself. Rowena enjoyed a quiet life. She rejoiced daily that she had managed to keep her friend Ciela alive. Lambert also pleased Rowena with her excellent health. The girl really wanted to be friends with Rowena. Lambert, what happened? Why did you decide to get close to Rowena? Ciela asked the girl. I always wanted to be friends with her, but now the feeling is even stronger. I really want to become her friend, exclaimed Lambert. Rowena agreed to be friends with her. Saturn explained to Rowena that Lambert was acting this way because her soul had finally cleansed, and she was back to her old self. She began to instinctively feel an interest in Rowena. Rowena noticed that the relationship between the Empress and Prince Arno had become even more strained. Something had clearly happened between them. Prince, this time I have gotten a good look at the will you have shown, said the Empress. I just finally got rid of something that was annoying me. But I see that Mother did not like it, replied the prince. Of course I didn't like it, laughing, said the Empress. It is for that reason that I want to entrust you with a matter. Prince Carden Arno Winfrith, in the name of Empress Ludovica Owen Winfrith, I order that as a representative of the imperial family, you go into battle at the head of a punitive unit. Of course, I must take care of the prince's comfort. The prince rejects the care of all maids except this one. Therefore, I am ordering her to be assigned as a special attendant. What? I'm going on a punitive expedition? Frightened, Rowena thought to herself. Demonic beasts were being wielded all over the continent. They were causing disturbances and harming the ordinary citizens. Therefore, the Winfrith Empire had organized a punitive unit that went on expeditions quite often. I'll be heading out alone. It's completely illogical to take a maid with me on a punitive expedition, exclaimed the prince. I forbid you to go there alone. Since this is an imperial decree, you will have to obey. And you shouldn't behave like that to your mother. By the way, haven't you heard that they call you the Mad Prince? Asked the Empress. But anyway, don't worry about your maid. She will be staying in the barracks. By the way, Lord Hartwin will be joining the punitive detachment. I'll give orders to prepare your equipment, so enjoy your tea today. Who knows when you'll taste it next time, said the Empress and left the room. Rowena could see that the Empress's words made the prince very upset. Rowena, don't worry. As long as you're by my side, there won't be any problems, the prince promised the girl. Rowena could not sleep for a long time. She was very worried about the upcoming expedition. Mr. Carden said I would be fine by his side, but from what I remember, there will be more demonic beasts than usual this year, so I need a way to protect my body. With a heavy sigh, Rowena muttered, Do you want to check if you have accumulated experience points? Asked an emerged Saturn. In the same instant, a message screen appeared in front of the girl. 60,408 points were available for Rowena to distribute. A mechanical voice suggested activating the World Guide ability. What is this ability? Rowena asked Saturn. If a soul in this world is found suitable to be escorted through it, it is granted this ability to be reborn as a world guide. The person gains additional power and new skills. Saturn explained. Neither I nor the prince have those abilities. We can't even fight monsters, so that's what you do. Since I am the curator of the world, I have an outstanding consciousness, but a very limited effect. All right, I want to possess the ability of a world guide, said Rowena. Just then a message came through. One had to choose whether the girl wanted to be a knight or a pawn. Rowena clicked on the image of a knight. After some time, a message appeared with instructions. The horse was a knight on guard of the world. He possessed abilities related to duels. His level was rapidly increasing. The power of combat was also increasing. The pawn, on the other hand, was an inept attendant who could borrow skills from an interested opponent. The girl wanted to choose the knight, but Saturn pressed the pawn. A voice announced that Rowena had chosen the pawn position. "Saturn, why did you do that? I wanted to be a knight," mumbled Rowena in a frustrated voice. "Rowena, you were only going to choose a knight because of fighting ability? But you were the one who said there was someone behind the monster, right? You heard Lambert whisper the Empress's name. Now consider this. The rumors of monsters within the walls of the royal palace are spreading at lightning speed. And the monster you met ended up being a person who was hiding in the imperial palace. In the future, this could grow to the size of an empire. Every other person could be a monster. You yourself realize that there is someone powerful behind this. That's why raising only combat skills is a futile endeavor. When dealing with a truly powerful monster, you can't just mindlessly rush forward waving a mop. I would also like to point out that the scope of the pawn's skills is extremely vast. Since Rowena had stayed up all night, she looked extremely tired the next day. Apparently you still couldn't sleep? Don't worry. Everything will be fine. I've gotten a report that there haven't been any major casualties on the headquarters side lately. The prince reassured the girl. Rowena knew the prince was deluded. This particular year's punitive mission would be scarier than previous ones. A large number of demonic beasts would swoop down on the Empire. The troops would suffer huge losses. However, all of the demonic beasts will be destroyed. Berno Kian Hartwin, the heir of Duke Hartwin, entered the prince's office. Rowena already knew that he would be the one to exterminate all the demonic beasts this year. He would become the junior hero of the Empire. "Long time no see, Rowena," greeted the girl, Lord Hartwin. Also, Rowena knew that Berno Hartwin was a friend of the prince. But he was not a good man. He was a traitor. He was only loyal to the Empress. Rowena remembered that it would not be long before Berno Hartwin would leave Prince Arno. Rowena knew from her past life that Berno would leave the prince after a punitive mission. One day, they will have a big fight. Berno will accuse the prince of indecision and will leave his office with a loud slam of the door. They will stop communicating. For the moment, there is a good relationship between these two. Mr. Carden trusts Lord Hartwin, but since I know the future, I won't trust him 100%. Decided for herself, Rowena. I don't think you will suffer on this expedition. There aren't many people in the Empire capable of defeating you, but I'm worried about Rowena. It is unlikely she has held a weapon. Lord Hartwin decided to share his concerns with the prince. Yes, you're right. She hasn't held a real weapon yet, but I would like to point out that she has impressive swinging abilities. Barely holding back a laugh, Arno said, "Rowena, do you happen to know how to handle a spear? Perhaps you have such experience," asked Lord Hartwin to the girl. "Don't worry about her. She'll take down all the demonic monsters with just a mop," said the prince and laughed loudly. "Well, if you say she can put down an opponent with a mop, then with low-level demonic beasts, she should be able to handle it. The capital is filled with beasts around that level," Lord Hartwin remarked. "In any case, next week I'll allocate her a spear for her defense," Lord Hartwin promised. "Rowena, be sure to take the spear that Lord Hartwin will offer you. My much-honored mother, Her Imperial Majesty, has been looking at you with too much malice. But after all, I'm just an ordinary servant. I pose no threat to your mother," Rowena remarked. "Yes, you are an ordinary servant, but of great importance. You are the only person I keep to myself. Any suitable means with which to strike will do for victory. You are my closest person," said the prince. "Frankly, I wish Her Majesty would just take out her anger on me. But since I got rid of her chess piece, she wants to torment me in exactly the same way. Rowena, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way things happened." "You have nothing to apologize for. On the contrary, I am grateful to you for backstabbing me back then," said Rowena with an embarrassed lowering of her head. "But demonic beasts are not the only thing you have to fear, Rowena. In order to make sure nothing terrible happens during the mission, you need to stay behind your Lord Carden at all times," said Lord Hartwin. "Her Majesty is a very consistent person. There is a strong possibility that a person specifically targeting you has been appointed. There is a big difference between the capital and the border area. Not only are there different kinds of demonic beasts dangerous in the expedition, but also the gazes of ordinary soldiers who have experienced many deaths. If there is something that cannot be handled with human might, then superstition comes into play. In the border area, rumors of a mad prince often spread, that everything that happens to the country is a consequence of the curse on him. It even reaches the point of rumors that because of the curse, the prince can't be around anyone. Many claim that you, Rowena, are the one the cursed prince keeps around. Therefore, no one will bestow you with a kind look. Most likely, everyone will hate the maid who followed the prince straight from the capital. Besides, they won't know how to get close to you. They will only cast furtive, barbed glances at you, or they will try to be friendly. I implore you, don't trust anyone. Treat everyone with suspicion. Should I treat you the same way? Rowena asked Lord Hartwin. I pose no threat to you. I assure you, I will never do you any harm, replied Lord Hartwin. Burno is a reliable man, so you don't have to worry about that. You should be very careful with the rest of the men. Try to stay close to me. Demonic beasts aren't the only threat to us, said the prince to the girl. Rowena, take care of yourself. You owe it to yourself to return safely. We fear for you since you are going to a place teeming with demonic beasts. Take this bracelet from us. We made it together with Lambert. Ciela slipped the bracelet onto her friend's arm. It came out small since we didn't have enough time. We heard about it from the military, so we made it. The military calls such a bracelet a talisman. In the midst of their workload, they must have made this bracelet while resting or before going to bed. Rowena thought to herself. She was grateful to her friends for the attention they had shown her. When Rowena arrived at the training area, the people there immediately turned their heads at her. For a second, the girl felt very scared. She doubted that she would be able to return home in one piece. Rowena, since you will be assisting His Highness the Prince, you will ride with him in the carriage. Be calm, because from now on you are under my protection, said Lord Hartwin to the excited girl. When Rowena climbed into the carriage, she saw the pale prince already sitting there. He told the girl that he wanted to take a little nap. Rowena knew that the reason for the rumors of the prince's madness was that he felt nauseous when around other people because of the symptoms of his phobia. Occasionally, there were people who didn't induce this condition in him, but they were few. Today, the prince was surrounded by too many people, so the symptoms intensified. While the prince slept, Rowena decided to socialize with Saturn. She was extremely interested in the pawn's skills. The instructions for the pawn said that it adopts the skills of an interested opponent, and the lower the object's interest level, the lower the skill level. Explain to me how that is, the girl asked. You don't have to take your opponent's skill, because you might not even know it. You can use the skill of someone you know in battle, but you don't have to be just acquaintances. Only the skill of someone close to you will help you, narrated Saturn. Oh, and also it's not enough just liking someone. There are also people with some commitments. But don't worry, there aren't many of them. These people are the guides of the world. They are the creatures leading the immature world on the road to prosperity. Therefore, this kind of power can't be lent to just anyone. If you're going to borrow their power, you'll need to get their oath. I realize it sounds extremely confusing right now, but I'm sure you'll figure it out in time. By the way, there is a man in your entourage who is a guide to the world, and if you befriend him, you can get his oath of office. There are no such people in my entourage. You are deceiving me, objected the girl. No, there are. You just have no idea who it is. Unfortunately, I can't tell you his name. It's out of my power. replied Saturn to the girl. A short while later, the carriage came to a stop. Lord Hartwin announced that they had arrived at their destination. It was the first time Rowena had ever seen a military camp in person. The girl immediately felt the stares of those present. She remembered what Lord Hartwin had warned her about. A shiver ran through the girl's body. "Rowena, we should both be in my tent. I thought at first to place you in the soldiers' tent, but that could be dangerous. There is one big disadvantage. There is only one bed here, so you'll have to sleep on the couch," said the prince to the girl. Rowena went to get some necessities and hurried back to the prince's tent. The girl walked past the dining soldiers. She heard scraps of their conversations. The girl guessed they were talking about her and the prince. "Shall we dine together?" asked Rowena one of the soldiers. His name was Aaron. The girl answered him nothing. She hurriedly left. "Apparently, she doesn't want to eat together with the likes of us. In her eyes, we're just ordinary subordinates," said the soldier sitting next to Aaron. Aaron assumed that the girl was just shy since she only looks out for upper-class people. "Rumor has it that this girl has been accompanying the prince since she was young. You could say she is his confidant. I am amazed by the fact that she is by the prince's side, knowing full well of his madness," exclaimed the soldier. "I claim nothing, of course, but it is because of her that the prince's curse may manifest itself again." As she was making the bed, the girl noticed that she had forgotten to bring her pillow with her. She wanted to go back for it, but remembering the soldiers eating dinner, she decided to sleep without a pillow. A smiling boy peeked into the prince's tent and handed the girl a pillow. "I thought you forgot your pillow, so I thought I'd bring you one. It will be extremely uncomfortable for you to sleep without it. The nights are very cold here. This pillow will replace your heating pad. My name is Neil, by the way. If you need any help, feel free to contact me." A week passed. Rowena kept following the prince around. She still couldn't figure out if there was an assassin among the soldiers that was hunting her. There was no one who would approach the girl. Thanks to Neil's care, Rowena didn't have to meet any other soldiers at all. Therefore, the girl calmed down a bit and relaxed. The girl really hoped that the excursion would continue to go as smoothly. But one day, the sentry announced an attack. Demonic beasts attacked the squad from the front and rear flank. "All servants, prepare for battle. The first platoon is heading to the front flank," ordered the prince. "Aaron, I charge you with the ones coming in from the rear flank. Together with His Highness the Prince, block the path of the demonic beasts that are approaching from behind the tents," shouted Lord Hartwin to his subordinate. "Based on the fact that it is necessary to block the path of the creatures on both sides of the camp, you will not be able to stay by my side. Therefore, stay close to the barracks, and be sure to keep the spearmen issued to you with you," said Lord Hartwin to Rowena. Afterward, the prince approached Rowena and asked the girl to stay in the tent. The girl really didn't want to be in the tent alone. She was scared. "No, I will go with you," the girl exclaimed. After a little thought, the prince agreed to take her along. Rowena held her spear tightly. She was ready to rush into battle at any moment. The atmosphere was indeed intimidating. The demonic beasts were constantly advancing. The archers were destroying the demonic beasts that were attacking from the sky. The swordsmen fought back with swords. Prince Arno used his fire control skill to counter the demonic beasts. "King of the world, for the sake of his subordinates!" The demonic beasts hissed and began to attack with redoubled strength. Rowena was afraid that the demonic beasts might kill the prince, so she fearlessly threw herself into the fight. Saturn saw Rowena going back in time and time again to continue the fight. He really wanted to stop her, but it was beyond his power. Saturn felt sorry for the girl, tears streaming down his cheeks. But no matter how hard the girl tried, one of the monsters kept attacking the prince. "Give him a break! How much can you do?" shouted Rowena and started to fight again. Look at how an ordinary servant girl can wield a spear. Maybe she finished some kind of course? The soldiers whispered among themselves in surprise. Or maybe it's not the prince who's crazy, but her. Maybe she's the one who summons monsters to her? Compared to last year, There were many times more monsters. But can an ordinary person summon a monster? Could she be a black magician? Usually, black magicians attack people for no reason. They even commit massacres in villages without feeling any remorse. There's no guarantee that this girl won't summon more of those things, Aaron exclaimed. Therefore, let's kill her. It's the only way we can survive. The girl finally dealt with the last monster. She still managed to protect the prince. Mr. Carden, now we've finally dealt with them. Rowena exclaimed joyfully, and in the same second, the dead one fell to the ground. There were arrows sticking out of her back. Remember well, Prince, how much to be feared in your lifetime by ignorance, self-righteousness, and your own selfishness. One can become embittered from all these qualities, mumbled the Empress. Whatever they say, but I can sacrifice even the people I care about. Therefore, Carden, my child, don't even dare to love a single living thing in this world. If you still haven't given up, then let's try it all over again, whispered Saturn, tightly cradling the girl's breathless body. When Rowena opened her eyes, she realized that she had returned to the day she had ridden to the military camp. Through the window, the girl saw Aaron's carriage passing by. Saturn, why did those men fire arrows at me? What did I do wrong? Why did I get death from humans instead of monsters? Asked the girl. I'll explain it to you now. When you killed the demonic beasts, these people found your thinking and your actions a little strange, replied Saturn. I remember that at that moment I became very muddled and my heart began to race. My thoughts began to dart from extreme to extreme. For some reason, I became very scared, Rowena admitted. It seemed to me for a moment that if the prince died, I would die after him. I remember that time after time I died because of demonic beasts. During the battle, the heightened senses ability was activated. It's an ability with complicated activation conditions, but it's pretty amazing, Saturn explained. Note that this ability causes the target's senses to reach an apex. However, the opponent must be within 50 meters. At this point, you must determine exactly what feelings the opponent is experiencing. Having activated the aggravation of the senses, one must also experience circumstances similar to those of the opponent. If one fully comprehends the opponent's feelings, one can take control of them and begin to manipulate them. In this way, one can control the opponent's actions. Ordinary people cannot comprehend and utilize such abilities, but perhaps someone made them triggered unknowingly. Someone knew exactly what needed to be done. From all this, it follows that somewhere there was a person aware of the ways to use the abilities. The World Guide knows these ways. Also, the ability can be activated after the approval of the curator. You mean I can get this ability after your approval? Rowena clarified. During the battle, you didn't receive the ability from me, but from someone who adopted my powers. Also, there could have been someone on the battlefield who had powers similar to mine, replied Saturn. It is impossible to obtain these powers naturally. There's only one curator of my level per world. One thing I know for sure, you did not activate this ability. I also don't sense the presence of a world guide here. Most likely, there is some sort of being who can take on human form and control the abilities of others. Such people are commonly referred to as shadows. Something like that happened to Lambert a few days in a row, and you yourself know very well that the girl was controlled by Empress Ludovica. Most likely, the Empress can create them. It is her special gift. And I am more and more convinced that the Empress decided to kill you. She realized you were a danger to her. Her current shadow doesn't seem inclined to act directly. The new shadow is hiding somewhere and acting through the hands of other people. She could be anyone, so we need to proceed with extreme caution. Suddenly the carriage stopped, and Lord Hartwin announced loudly that they had arrived at the military camp. It was exactly the same as last time. Rowena decided that this time she had to figure out which of these soldiers was the Empress's shadow. I realized what the past failure was. I won't be able to come up with any solution to the problem while hiding behind Mr. Carden's back. Rowena thought to herself and decided to introduce herself to the soldiers. My name is Rowena Edelia. I am the assistant to Prince Carden. If you don't mind, I would like to have dinner with you, said the girl, walking over to the campfire where the soldiers were eating dinner. Have a seat next to me, suggested Aaron. I hear you've already managed to get close to the soldiers, prompted the prince. Yes, because I've decided that they can't all be assassins. There are bound to be some good men among them, replied the girl. Rowena, you are a man capable of turning back time to avoid death. So when you utter such phrases, I believe there are reasons for it, said the prince to the girl. If you need my help, you can turn to me as many times as you want. Know that I will always help you. Here, take this, eat. Aaron held out a bowl of soup to the girl. Aaron Kendrick was a member of the Punitive Mission, 2nd Platoon Commander of the Central District. This is different from what you eat with the prince, so I'm not entirely sure you'll like this soup, said Jason O'Tile. He was part of the Punitive Mission, a private soldier from the 2nd Platoon of the Central District. Pardon my friend for his rude behavior, exclaimed Carlin Ursher. He was a member of the Punitive Mission, a deputy commander from the 2nd Platoon of the Central District. I see you all decided to all have dinner together? Asked the approaching Lord Hartwin. Commander Aaron is a masterful cook. Would you like a taste? Asked Carlin to Lord Hartwin. It would be nice to test Aaron's skills after all this time, Lord Hartwin admitted. Rowena, may I ask you how you came to be with the prince? I know you have served him since you were a little girl. Did you get a job as the prince's assistant through the patronage of someone in the family? Neil asked. It was nothing of the sort. Before that, I lived in an orphanage. My parents died during an attack by demonic beasts. One day, I sneaked out of the orphanage and wandered around. As luck would have it, I happened to meet the prince. Narrated Rowena. You could say that the prince picked me up off the streets and brought me into his home. He simply held out his hand to me and offered to follow him. He promised me that my life would be better with him, and I believed him. That's how it all happened. And after that, you stayed in the palace all the time? Aaron asked the girl. Yes, I met friends there who became my family. I call the palace my home now, replied the girl. After dinner, Aaron gave Rowena a pillow and a warm heating pad. Are you all right? Asked the girl as Lord Hartwin approached. I'm actually a little uneasy. I'm socializing with people knowing that among them is someone who wants to kill me, Rowena admitted. But you don't have to do what you don't like, said Lord Hartwin to the girl. But I've decided that it's not an option to hide from trouble, and I know very well that you and the prince are helping me in everything, replied the girl. If it goes on like this, I may have difficulties, mumbled the shadow. He had heard perfectly well what Rowena and Lord Hartwin had been talking about. A few days before, the Emperor's aide had summoned Shadow to her quarters. You have been assigned one important mission. You are serving in the demonic beast elimination troops, aren't you? The aide asked. Yes, and I think I already have a mission. I'm involved in battles against demonic beasts, replied the Shadow. Now your mission has changed. The current target is the maid that is near the prince. You need to kill her, but you can't just kill her. You have to arrange it so that she dies in the hands of the spirit of this world. The way to kill her can be completely different. Make it so that that person, the king of the world, doesn't have a chance to keep the life and energy of this world alive. Try to make it so that it is the soldiers who kill his most precious creature. Rowena, I want to warn you. When you interact with soldiers, absolutely all their senses are heightened, including fear. It's impossible for them to accept that some maid can crush demonic beasts, said the girl to the Saturn that appeared in front of her. In order to accept such a phenomenon, you have to find an explanation for it. The soldiers might think you are practicing black magic. They all know that you are a maid under the cursed prince, so don't show your powers. I need to see if I have powers applicable to this situation, said Rowena and opened the message screen in front of her. Among the skills was the ability to anticipate danger. The girl decided to use it. The next day, Rowena noticed that she could sense danger when she was near Jason. She couldn't explain her feelings, as Jason was always friendly and smiling. Could it be that he was up to something bad? Jason and Neil suggested that the girl go berry picking in the woods. After a little thought, Rowena agreed. Suddenly, she heard someone calling her name. When she turned around, she saw Lord Hartwin. Standing next to him were Aaron and Carlin. "What business do you have traveling outside the camp toward the forest?" Lord Hartwin asked the girl. Rowena answered him that they had decided to gather fruit for dinner. "Just recently, I was reported seeing some suspicious footprints in the forest. Supposedly, they were traces of magic. Therefore, we need to go to the forest as well," Lord Hartwin said thoughtfully. "I hope you won't mind if we accompany you?" Bowing before Rowena asked Lord Hartwin. The girl didn't want to go after the berries with a large crowd, but she couldn't refuse either. She had to agree. "I never realized the fruits were so deep in the forest. I once heard that demonic beasts can feed on them," said Aaron. "I also think that when demonic beasts don't have food, they don't squander ordinary berries and fruits," said Neil. Rowena realized that at the moment they were just at the edge of the forest where she died last time. The girl suddenly felt wistful and lonely. She really hoped she would avoid death this time. "Rowena, are you all right?" Lord Hartwin asked the girl. Rowena answered him that she was fine. "Why aren't you carrying the spear I gave you for self-defense?" Lord Hartwin inquired. It would look weird if I even go berry picking with a spear," laughed the girl said. One of the soldiers found burnt candles and some rocks on the ground. It was clear that someone had used magic in this place. A few years ago, Lord Hartwin had been warned that his friend Prince Arno was the king of the world, and the woman targeting him was the empress of another world. "I think it's witchcraft targeting His Highness the Prince," said Lord Hartwin. "You mean someone wants to harm Lord Carden?" clarified Rowena. "More specifically, 2 types of sorcery have been combined. One to bring about changes in His Highness the Prince's entourage, while the other—" Lord Hartwin began to explain. "Damn, you've messed up my plans," the shadow thought with annoyance. "Well, there's nothing to be done about it now that it's happened. I don't know if the demonic beasts will be able to attack and damage the Dark One, but whatever we do it all for our glory." "Shadow," called out to the demonic beasts. "Everyone prepare for battle!" shouted Lord Hartwin loudly. "I've counted 16 beasts so far. I think they won't be much of a hindrance to us," shouted Carlin. Neil put his backs to Rowena. "I didn't bring my spear because I thought we wouldn't go that deep into the forest. Also, I don't want anyone to know that I know how to fight. But did I do the right thing?" the girl thought to herself. Suddenly, the girl felt danger behind her. Turning around, Rowena saw a huge monster. From fright, she involuntarily screamed. "Rowena!" frightenedly exclaimed Lord Hartwin. The man ran up to Rowena. Grabbing the girl, he held her tightly against him and thrust his sword forward. A moment later, the demonic beast was defeated. Lord Hartwin asked the girl if she was hurt. Before the girl could answer, she felt danger again. A huge demonic beast was approaching them. Lord Hartwin put his arm around the girl again. Rowena snatched the spear from Neil's hands and struck the demonic beast. She knew what she was doing was wrong, but she could no longer stand idly by. "Rowena, let me examine your hands. You may have injured your palms during the battle," said Lord Hartwin to the girl. "Your actions were quite deft. Still, it is a good thing that you were able to use the spear as I taught you." Lord Hartwin bandaged the girl's injured palms. "He decided to help me? Did he lie to hide my ability? Why did he choose to help me?" Rowena wondered to herself. But depending on the circumstances, there will be times when instead of attacking in a leap, it's better to stab the beast from the front. There are monsters that appear from the sky, so you can be attacked from above," Aaron unexpectedly advised. "And you're really great with a spear. I never realized you were trained by Lord Hartwin. In fact, I think it's time for you to become a soldier. Maid work doesn't suit you anymore," Carlin exclaimed. When they returned to the camp, Lord Hartwin gave the girl a salve with which she could treat her injured palms. "You know, and I'm extremely surprised that Aaron decided to give me advice. I always thought he was rather cold in his communication," Rowena admitted. I don't know exactly, but I assume Aaron did so because looking at you brought someone to his mind. Years ago, in a battle with demonic beasts, he was the sole survivor. Other than him, there were no survivors from the family, Lord Hartwin explained. If you have noticed, during battles with demonic beasts, Aaron is always at the front of the line. Even though he might have received a title of nobility for his services and worked in the headquarters, he always stays in the vanguard when exterminating the beasts. He once told me that he trained his daughter to use a spear. Aaron is certainly a cold and straightforward man, but is very gentle with those close to him. If you wanted to get close to the soldiers in order to reduce their wariness towards you, I think you have now achieved a good result. Well, have a good rest. Lord Hartwin, you gave me the medicine and helped me recently, so I am indebted to you. Thank you for everything, the girl exclaimed. You don't have to thank me. I'm glad to be able to help you. With a smile, Lord Hartwin replied, Rowena, I see you have something on your mind, said Saturn, who appeared behind the girl. I think I've begun to understand why the man fell under the influence of the abilities and why he doubted me. And it's not just Mr. Aaron we're talking about here. All the soldiers here are plagued by doubts. All of them have experienced tragedy in the past, replied the girl. Rowena, if you understand these people too well, you will no longer be able to dislike or hate them as before. You will simply cease to fear them. Is that okay with you? Saturn asked the girl. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about it, and it's inevitable anyway. Because as you get to know a person, it gets harder and harder not to show weakness towards them, Rowena replied. Saturn remembered how he had wanted to kill the Empress a few years ago, but had failed. There is little power in your hands. Do you pity me? You are an arrogant and pathetic creature after all, said the Empress that day, smirking merrily. Rowena had a nightmare. In the dream, monsters were chasing her. Lambert was once again caught in the tentacles of black slime. The girl tried to run away from it all, but she failed. The girl felt someone actively shaking her by the shoulders. When she opened her eyes, she saw the excited face of the prince in front of her. You're finally awake! You were probably having a nightmare, said the prince to the girl. Rowena thanked him for waking her up. Here, take this. It's chamomile tea. It will help you calm down. It always helps me when I have nightmares. The prince held out a cup of tea to the girl. You remember that when I was little, I used to have all sorts of horrible dreams. After them, I couldn't sleep for a long time. That's why you always made me chamomile tea. It is quite a ticklish feeling to receive tea from Mr. Carden, Rowena admitted. Saturn wanted to touch the sleeping girl's face, but his hand went through hers. Unless it's a place like the time gap I have a right to be in, I'm not allowed to touch anyone. It would be nice if I could wake you up, thought Saturn, looking at his hands. I feel the pain of not being able to awaken someone dear to me from a nightmare every time. There is nothing I can do to help, only warn and advise. It won't be long before the demonic beasts come here. It won't be long now. Rowena thought over breakfast. Toward lunchtime, a sentry announced that a herd of demonic beasts were approaching their military camp. They were advancing from the rear. Why only from the rear? Is it really going to be different this time? Why did everything change? Was it because we interfered with the sorcery? Rowena wondered to herself. If I continue to procrastinate, it's only going to get worse from here. Neil thought to himself and crushed the magic stone in his hand. Neil had originally planned to accuse the girl of practicing black magic. He thought that the soldiers would treat her rudely, with wariness and hostility. Now it was impossible to make the soldiers attack the girl. She managed to find common ground with them. Neil was left with only one option. He wanted to set things up so that the girl would be abandoned on the battlefield. There are even more of them than last time. This time, all the demonic beasts that were supposed to be on both sides came here. The girl thought to herself. Seeing the danger from the air, the prince shouted to Rowena to be more careful. The prince realized that the girl wouldn't be able to dodge quickly, so he pushed her aside. The girl was picked up by Lord Hartwin, who ran up to her. The demonic beast grabbed the prince's shoulder. Don't mind me, I'll be fine. You better watch your surroundings. You know that demonic beasts rarely attack alone, shouted the prince. Rowena remembered that a similar situation happened before she traveled back in time the first time. Back then, almost all the soldiers had died. After the battle, Lord Hartwin had become a hero as he had single-handedly stood his ground and won. Rowena picked up her spear from the ground and launched herself into the battle. She didn't want even one to die. The girl was adamant that if she could do anything, she should definitely act. Rowena saw that Neil was surrounded by several monsters. He was wounded. The girl also noticed a rather strange shadow under the guy's feet. It was as if it was alive. So the monster is Neil? So the way he treated me so well was just part of his plan? If Neil is the monster, then should I help him? Isn't he the creature I should be dealing with? Suddenly, the girl noticed the bracelet on her arm. She remembered that Lambert had once been a monster, too. No, he's not a monster. The real Neil is hidden somewhere deep inside this body. I can save him if I purify him, just like Lambert. Damn, I forcibly gathered all the demonic beasts in one place, and that's a big burden on my body. Because of that, I can't make them take me as their own. Neil thought to himself. A monster flew up to Neil and pinned him against a tree. It will be a shame if I die here. It'll take me a long time to find a suitable body for me afterward. Rowena tossed the monster aside with one swipe of her spear. Jason immediately ran to Neil and helped him off the battlefield. Saturn noticed that the strength was beginning to leave the prince. Even though the prince could heal his wounds, he still felt pain. I don't even know if I can do this. Saturn thought to himself and channeled some of his power into the prince. Prince Arno felt his body fill with power. Bishop, I call out to your god. Come here, trustworthy servant, the prince said in a loud voice. Suddenly, a bright light pierced the thicket of the forest. Here I am. Are you glad to see me? I've come here to help you. A blonde-haired boy jumped down from a tree to the ground. Who is this guy anyway? Rowena thought in surprise. Ronan, how did you know to come here? Asked the boy Lord Hartwin. Rowena knew that Ronan was the name of the only archmage in this world. The girl had imagined him a little differently. The archmage's full name was Ronan Parviz Ermal. I arrived here thanks to a method that not even Mr. Carden can use. But let's solve all the problems first before I tell you everything in detail, replied Lord Ronan. Look, please choose one side. Which do you prefer, left or right? Asked the archmage to Rowena, much to the girl's surprise. Rowena mumbled that she was choosing the right side. Right side it is then! Ronan exclaimed and used his right hand to throw bright lightning bolts at the demonic beasts. With a loud howl, the demonic beasts fell to the ground dead. I've made a bit of a mess here. But by the way, I would like to point out that there are still monsters coming this way. However, we were able to buy some time, Ronan muttered. What would have happened if I had chosen the left side? Asked Rowena to the archmage. He answered her that his left side was responsible for flame attacks. But if something went wrong, the forest could go up in flames. My role ends here. Even though I wish I could help you some more, there's nothing else I can do since I sent my doppelganger here. As of now, I am currently in the opposite part of the continent, said Ronan, and vanished into thin air. Ronan only came for a moment and immediately vaporized. I didn't even have time to communicate with him. The excruciating pain in my whole body made me lose sight of that moment. The prince thought to himself. A body that can't even die only cries out for suffering throughout its life. Whether dream or reality, it is a nightmare. And only Rowena saves me from all this horror. After the demonic beasts were finished, it was time to repair the damage. The bodies of the dead were collected, and the wounds of the traumatized were bandaged. Although there were no wounds on the prince's body, it was still noticeable that he was in pain and agony. Rowena was certain that her constant deaths, the prince's torment, and monsters were related to Empress Ludovica. Once upon a time, the emperor's assistant had told Neil that their main purpose was so that their kin could live on this land. Neil had already begun to doubt who was really his kin or friend. His coworkers had not only helped him survive, but had given him the opportunity to fully recover. Rowena approached Neil. In her hand, she held a mop cutter. "I had a premonition of something when you offered me a private meeting. I had a hunch that you weren't the most ordinary maid," Neil exclaimed. "You're wrong. I am the most ordinary maid, but for some reason I'm always getting mixed up in various unpleasant stories," objected the girl. "You didn't come here with a spear, but with some kind of stick to avoid suspicion?" asked Neil. "Yes, you're right. By the way, I've noticed that you're not very skillful at shadow combat," replied Rowena. "That's a good name, Shadow. I would like to point out that creatures like me are called that in this area. Would two indistinguishable beings be visible on the ground? So this address fits us," said Neil. "By the way, should I tell everyone and anyone about your abilities? You have your own secrets too, don't you? As of late, we have begun to envelop the souls existing in this world. But this world is still immature, so its souls are incomplete. Their own self is blurred. A creature with limited power is what you really are. We are much stronger than you, so we can absorb your souls. However, the envelopment intermingles us with the memories and feelings originally stored in the host's soul. That must be why I feel tired." The true owner of this body, the real Neil, was a street orphan, a boy who had rare memories of being treated as a human. He begged for just once someone to just show him kindness. That wish breaks me. I give up the will to exist. A gradual purification is beginning, and you shouldn't look at me that way. I am only a creature that was going to use you and kill you. I don't deserve pity." Suddenly, Neil swayed and began to fall to the ground. Rowena picked the boy up so he wouldn't hurt himself. "You're definitely a monster. So why do you— Who said such a thing and made such a choice? Feel like a person like me?" Rowena asked. "I am soft, but other tribesmen are different from me," replied Neil and passed out. "Rowena, what's going on? I saw a glow of purification in this place," said Lord Hartwin, who approached. "Damn, now how am I supposed to explain what happened?" Frightened, the girl thought to herself. "Wait, what's going on now? Neil is unconscious? Are you saying he was a shadow?" Lord Hartwin asked. Rowena answered him that Neil was a shadow, but now he was cleansed. Now he would be the same, the real Neil. He never revealed his true nature in front of me. Never once did it happen. The reason for the glow is clear to me now. I believe you, Rowena, are one of us. You too are a knight on guard of the world. You too have similar powers," said Lord Hartwin. "Is Lord Hartwin really a world guide? He has too many different abilities." Surprisedly, thought the girl. Knights on guard of the world specialize in martial skills. They are world guides whose mission is to protect the world. The fact that I have awakened is only known to two people, Prince Arno and Ronan. My power was recognized and brought here by my mother, Duchess Sor Hartwin. She is an invincible knight who knows no defeat in battle. She is the precious sword of the Empire, having contributed to the founding of the country. My mother sensed some sort of ability in me long ago. At the moment, she is the right hand of Her Imperial Majesty Ludovica. "Then it turns out you chose the Empress's side as well?" Rowena asked. "My mother does not force me to do anything. I am at liberty to choose for myself whom I will defend," replied Lord Hartwin. "By the way, since you are near Neil and know that he was a shadow, it means that this is not the first time you have encountered such creatures. If the Empress becomes aware that someone is a conduit of the world, she won't just let it go. This is a confrontation that you should not participate in. At this moment, the Empress is stronger than you. She can ruin you. For me, saving people from the shadow is a very large-scale endeavor. Therefore, in order to protect them, I will use every opportunity. I won't back down. I want to reach the end," exclaimed Rowena. She involuntarily thought of Ciel and Lambert. "Rowena, I dare to ask you to become your knight. I hope I have the strength to do so," exclaimed Lord Hartwin, dropping to one knee in front of the girl. "Lord Hartwin, I dare remind you that I am but the most ordinary maid. I have absolutely no title of any kind. You are, after all, a descendant of the family. The girl objected. It is of no importance to a knight who the person he accompanies is. All I ask is that you allow me to help you follow your path, replied Lord Hartwin. He's clearly not going to back down, but it's even better for me to have someone by my side to help me. Rowena thought to herself. The girl held out her hand to Lord Hartwin. I am the knight and guide of the world, Berno Kian Hartwin. I make an oath before the world that I will be only your sword. I will be a knight protecting only you. Guide of the world, Knight Berno Kian Hartwin has sworn an oath to you. The ability to interact with the subject's abilities through the commander effect has been activated, said a male mechanical voice. Also active is the interaction of the oath effect with the linker and time rewind abilities. The return of past time memories has been triggered. After a short time, the memories will be replenished. Saturn, what is happening now? What memories are we talking about? The girl exclaimed in surprise. A moment later, the girl saw Lord Hartwin's memories in front of her. She saw all the battles he had participated in. Rowena also saw the day Lord Hartwin received a charter from the Empress. This punitive expedition has cost you a great deal of labor. I believe that you have suffered because of an immature king, said the Empress. Your Majesty, what are you talking about now? Clarified Lord Hartwin. He guessed that the Empress was referring to her son, Prince Arno. Originally, demonic beasts originate in a world where the abilities of the king are insufficient or non-existent. Of course, with effort, it was possible to compensate for these deficiencies, replied the Empress. Except that your cowardly king, who has grown accustomed to the suffering of the people, does nothing about it. So there is nothing to be done. Lord Hartwin, you and he have different burdens. Unlike your king, you can do things differently. If you are interested, then find your purpose. You must make this work. So that's why Lord Hartwin and Mr. Carden stopped communicating, because of the Empress's words. Rowena guessed. Because Lord Hartwin was constantly seeing the deaths of his fellow soldiers, he began to have nightmares. He really wanted to stop it. One day, he came to the Empress to have her explain her words to him in detail. Your king is not of this world. The shadows that the prince fears so much are beings that have passed after him from his world. The prince is from a generation of kings that have already nurtured this world once before. I would like to point out that it is not that difficult to colonize a world where demonic beasts do not appear. If you want to know why your king is inactive, the reason is simple. The queen can't colonize a world that doesn't have the power of a king. The role of the king is to simply transfer power to the queen in due course. The king you worship has no such power. That same day, Lord Hartwin went to the prince to discuss the Empress's words with him. He wanted to force the prince to act so that there would be no more casualties among the knights and common people. Lord Hartwin was met by Rowena. She offered to make him some tea. Lord Hartwin treated the girl well. He enjoyed talking to her, but at that moment he absolutely did not care about tea. Arno, I came to see you because I think you and I have enough topics to discuss. Let's talk to you, exclaimed Lord Hartwin, burst into the prince's study. The prince was in a depressed mood as usual. It seemed that he was absolutely in no mood for conversation. It was this state of mind of the prince that had been pissing Lord Hartwin off lately. But no matter what state the prince was in, Lord Hartwin decided not to back down. He was determined to put an end to the turmoil that was happening in the Empire.